Benito or Benito? What's the best way to say it? Gabriel or Gabriel?
Both are fine. I'm very international. Now I lived in many countries and I'm used to all sorts, and it's a name that travels very well. So we also have it in Norway, and then it's Gabriel, the usual way of pronouncing it, but Gabriel is fine. Gabriel is totally fine too.
Okay, let me introduce you, Professor José Antonio, my colleague and friend. José Antonio is a great partner and a Brazilian and also an international professor of finance and accounting. Professor José Antonio, nice to meet you again.
It's a pleasure to be here for you. And it's a privilege. Looking forward to starting this media hours.
From now on, you are the master of the ceremony. Please go ahead. Take it in your hands.
Okay, thank you very much. Very kind of you, professors. It is indeed a great honor to have all of you here this morning. Can you hear me? No?
Jose Antonio, I think that I'm not sure if I am the only. Listen, when you speak, it's very difficult to understand.
Yeah, do you have a microphone, Professor? Because I think it's a little bit of an echo. I don't know if.
Okay, so I don't know what is happening because it's the same thing I have had always, and it has always worked. Perhaps it's the configuration of the computer. The only option that I have is to change computer, and can you hear me better now?
We can hear you, but we cannot understand very well.
So I will leave the meeting, and I will try to get to connect again.
Okay.
Professor José Antonio is not clear enough, okay? Can you change?
Yeah, I think he left the session and he's trying to connect again. Yeah.
Okay, for sure.
I'm sorry, Professor Gabriel and Roberto for the difficulties, the tech difficulties here, but he's going to be back in a few minutes.
Gabriel, let me know. Are you half Italian?
No, I'm half Spanish.
Benito, como yo soy italiano, Ricardo Giordano. Ecco, capisci?
No. I'm actually half Spanish. So my full name is Gabriel Robertstad, which is my Norwegian name, Garcia Benito. So Spanish.
Perfecto. Yo también tengo un poquito de sangre de los hermanos españoles.
Qué bueno.
Yo soy Díaz, Ricardo Benicio Díaz Jordán. Por lo tanto, soy un poco italiano y un poco como español. No tengo como negar esto. Así es.
Una buena mezcla.
Bueno, pero como todos brasileños somos todos. Y tengo también un poco de sangre de indios. ¿Te parece? Bueno.
Professor José?
Let's start with the presentation, and I will start with the rule of Professor José Antonio. Gabriel Benito, could you please start with your presentation, and then Professor Roberto Vassolo, and then we go to the questions and answers. Could it be?
Perfect. Who is going to handle the questions? Is going to be a moderator or?
I expect that my friend Professor José Antonio could access and play the role as moderator. But if he was not able to, I will perform this task. Okay, could it be? Okay, let's go ahead. Professor Gabriel Benito, it's up to you, man.
Okay, thank you.
Go
Thank you. Thank you a lot,
First of all,
Ricardo.
just opening word. Before that, I would like to formally thank you, Professor Gabriel Benito, Professor Roberto Vassolo, for your very, very important presence and participation. It's for us of the organizing committee of SemeAD USP, it's very, very useful your participation for our audience, but more than that, it's very, very important listening from you, learning from you, because all need this kind of information, and it's very, very important to learn from your perspective, your point of view. So I'm glad you came. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the nice words. And you know, I'm happy to be here, and it's an honor to be invited to the conference, and also to play a role in the conference. It's even better, and also to get the opportunity to present the journal, and also help hopefully help people develop their research into a stage where it can be part of international publications, and we hope that would be the case as a result of a seminar like this. So I'll start by sharing some slides that I have prepared. Let's see if I find them. Of course, now let's see. Okay, I'll just have to start again. Let's see. It's typical that there they are, that when you want them. Okay. Am I on presentation mode now?
Yes.
Does everybody see my slides? Okay. So so I take it from here then. Okay, so it's a pleasure to say a few words about the Global Strategy Journal at the SemeAD conference 2021. I'll try to be brief and pack as much information as possible into 15 minutes or so. I'll try to keep my time. Let me just start with what Global Strategy Journal is. It's one of the leading journals in global strategy research, and the domain of the journal is really to try to push forward and engage in research that lies in the interaction between the global context and strategy at the level of companies and organizations at large. It's not just for-profit companies, but any organization that has an international strategy or is involved in an international context. It's one of the 3 journals of Strategic Management Society. So we are a sister journal of Strategic Management Journal and the Strategic Entrepreneurship Journal. So we have all the backing of SMS, and we also have very fortunate to have a very good publisher, Wiley, behind the journal, which is a great help in terms of both publishing the journal, but also in terms of disseminating the articles and keeping up a lot of high-level type of activities related to not just GSJ, but also the sister journals. We are 3 co-editors that run the journal alongside me, and I am at BI Norwegian Business School in Oslo, Norway. It's also Alvaro Cuero Kazura in Boston at Northwestern University, and Ramu Dambi in Philadelphia at Temple University. The rest of the team, the editor team, consists of associate editors and they are perhaps the most important set of people in the journal, because they are the ones that really make decisions about manuscripts, as I will get back to soon. And from the left here, we have René Belderbos from Belgium, Rian Drogendijk from the Netherlands, Marcus Møller-Larsen from Denmark, Sergio Lazzarini, a compatriot of yours and in Sao Paulo, Shige Makino from University of Hong Kong, Anu Penne from Washington in the US, and Lucia Piccitello in Milan in Italy. So it's a very diverse and well-balanced, I would say, and very competent set of associate editors that we have in the journal. Some have been with the journal for quite some time, particularly Arno Penne and Lucia. Some are, and Shige. Shige actually is stepping down at the end of this year after having 3 terms as associate editor. Fairly recent editors are Sergio, Marcus, Rian, and René. But these are really sort of the backbone of the journal. We position ourselves as an influential journal, but we are both young and quite focused. We are now celebrating a decade of good publishing. We are focused in the sense that we do global strategy. We don't do all types of strategy, and we don't do all types of international business. I'll perhaps get into that later, and it's also a nice question for in the Q&A later. So what is international business and what is global strategy? And we focus on global strategy. We're also fairly small. We are a quarterly journal, only 4 issues per year, and we don't want to publish a lot of articles. We want to focus on quality articles. That's important for us. On average, over the last decade, we have published about 30 articles per year. We see that we are publishing a few more than that in this year, and probably also in the years to come. So we are increasing the number of articles a bit, but not by much. The journal was positioned from inception as a high quality journal, and I think it was quickly picked up by the rankings and so forth, and also the various types of indices that it was so. So we were climbing up the ladder quite quickly here, and we recently got a level 4 rating in the Academic Journal Guide, which actually makes us the only strategy journal with a 4 rating, apart from SMJ, which has a 4-star rating. But we are not the only good journal out there. There are many good journals out there that are relevant for the type of studies that we want to attract to the journal. So it's a very competitive field, and it's really a great bunch of competitors that we are up against, including the journal that Roberto will soon present, Longrange Planning, which is really one of the old and classic journals in the field, is also up there and doing very nicely, as the figures in the slide show. So what do we publish? We publish strategy in context. So it's firm level or organization level strategies, but in an international context, which means that country level analysis that operate at a country level exclusively are not really appropriate for our journals. They can be interesting for economics journals or other types of journals, but not really for our journal. we would like to see the international context as one of the theoretical drivers in the research. So not just international data as such, but also that the international data is sort of a focal point in the study. For example, if a study is about the role of institutions, politics, so geography, so the international context, how it plays into the design or the implementation of strategy, then very often a multi-country data set would be appropriate for that sort of study. However, we also publish single country studies, and they are quite appropriate for a whole range of research issues that are relevant for the journal. Could be, for example, studies of firms' internationalization, where we would be interested in the heterogeneity of firms rather than so within a country, not necessarily across countries, or it could be comparisons of domestic firms and international firms, or it could be looking at the relationship between domestic firms and foreign firms. It could be, for example, a study in Brazil of Brazilian firms tapping into global value chains. Within Brazil or outside of Brazil. They would be relevant for the type of studies that we would publish. How do we deal with the papers? Initially, all submissions are screened by Alvaro, Ram, and myself. Typically, what happens is that they are submitted to the journal. The administrative staff at Wiley and the journal, they pick 1/3 to me, 1/3 to Alvaro, and 1/3 to Ram. We screen them, and last year, just check the statistics. We desk rejected or rejected and asked for and offered a potential resubmission in about half of the cases. So 50% were rejected without going out to review. So it's very, very important to get past the hurdle of us as co-editors. So we don't get screened out. I will get back to that in a moment. If a paper gets past the screening, then they are all allocated to the associate editor, and the associate editor is the handling editor and makes the decisions. All decisions are made at the discretion of the associate editor, unless, of course, the associate editor wants to consult the co-editors for a variety of reasons, and then we're happy to engage in a conversation about specific manuscripts with them. Usually, we use 2 reviewers. We try not to sort of overuse reviewers. Sometimes, there will be 3 reviewers. Typically, the reviewers will get 4 weeks. And plus a little bit of lag time in advance and after the reviews are in. Editors also need some time to think about the paper and make it come to a decision and writing up a letter. The median time for the first turnaround is 64 days. We try to not to have too many rounds. So we ask associate editors if a paper goes through the review processes, that after a couple of rounds we will typically not use the reviewer any longer, but make a commitment to the paper. In other words, minor revision, conditional accept, or reject. So we seldom use a reviewer for more than 2 rounds of reviews. Okay. Given both that mostly that authors tend to use quite some time before they resubmit, of course, there's quite a voyage in terms of time from first submission until a final acceptance. And last year, the median time was actually 1.5 years. That's what it takes. But just that you know that when you embark in a voyage with a journal, if you are successful, it would take time. Of course, if you are unsuccessful, then it may just take a couple of days. The acceptance rate was a little bit more than 10% last year. So it's not an easy journal to get into, but it's not excruciatingly hard, likes of the elite journals, so SMJ and JIBS and AMJ and so forth. Just a few words about avoiding to get a desk reject or a reject and resubmit. And there are three main categories of say traps that one should try to avoid. One is more sort of formalities about the submission. Could be that the submission is incomplete or that it's severely overlong. Say a manuscript of 60 pages, 70 pages. Usually we would say, look, this is too many things happening in the paper. You need to sort out what paper you want to write and come back afterwards. So that would typically trigger a reject and resubmit type of response rather than a desk reject necessarily. It could be plagiarism, particularly overlap with other work by the same author or set of authors. And that is picked up by both software for plagiarism, but also that our knowledge about papers, and sometimes there's simply sort of too much overlap, and we would ask for clearing up things. And this happens more often than we perhaps would have expected. The second main reason for getting a reject is that the paper is not really aligned with the domain of the journal. Okay, it could be that it's not really international, or that it's not strategy. It can be very interesting, it can be about international business, but it has nothing strategy in it. Or it could be that it is international, it is strategy, but it's not about companies or organizations. So it can be, for example, states and so forth. And then it would be outside of the realm of the journal. The third important category is more quality and contribution. By the way, weak alignment, typically that will lead to a desk reject, not a reject and resubmit. Okay. And then you have quality and contribution potential, and we are relatively picky in the sense that we have high quality standards. So we expect studies that want to be successful with us to have to really provide something new. So lack of novelty, just a pure replication, even if it is well made, tends to be sort of less successful in terms of getting published, or that the contribution is unclear or not particularly large. That's one reason. The other reason is that the paper might be promising, but clearly undeveloped. And underdevelopment is very often a reason for reject and resubmit. It could be problems with the theory, it could be problems with the data and methods, and it could be problems with the presentation, including language, the structure of the paper, and so forth. So those aspects are important. So just to conclude then, so if you have a paper about global strategy that has a novelty to it, please try Global Strategy Journal. We're here to publish your best work, and we will we will really want to work with you. We try to be constructive in the way that we handle reviews. We try to be as quick as we can, and we really want to see in print the best possible version of your study. That's what we really aim at. That so we can be able to help you to develop sort of the core and the gem in your research. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you for the attention, and we look forward to receiving your papers, and I will look forward to discussing your comments afterwards. So bye for now. I'll stop sharing, and Roberto, please go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriel. Was an excellent presentation. I will present now on long-range planning, and what I will do is I will try to avoid overlapping with stuff that Gabriel already said. So my focus will be maybe more on some slight differences, so to give you new information. So I will avoid repetition. My objective is first to give you an overview of the journal. Second, put an emphasis on the process. And when I get into the process, I will emphasize Brazil. So that's my goal here. So I adjust the presentation with that in mind. As I am one of the associate editors, and the journal has an editor-in-chief that is Tommy, and is moving to have a co-editor-in-chief briefly, but it's pretty similar the structure to what Gabriel already told you. We claim that we are the oldest journal in strategic management. I haven't checked that, but I think that we are the oldest one. And really, the journal is very wide in the type of content that it accepts, as far as it fits within the strategic management. And we don't impose restrictions into the empirical approach, the empirical design. We also accept theoretical papers, we accept survey data, archival data, case studies, and so forth. Having said that, I would say that in practical terms, there is a sort of publication biases toward more econometric papers, longitudinal papers, empirical papers. So that was in practical terms what dominate the acceptance, but we don't have a priori any restriction. And another issue, having a great, a very novel contribution is not per se requirement. Although what you have to submit has to be very clearly stated in order to make a point on why your paper deserves to be published. Just for giving you giving you a brief comment on the content, we go from corporate strategy, governance, business strategy, business model, international dimension of strategy. We handle papers on international business. In that sense, context-specific papers, we somehow overlap with what Gabriel said, although it's not our main focus. Innovation, strategic entrepreneurship. We have a good ratio of paper from emerging market of submission, corporate social responsibility, organizational structure, and design. During the last years, I have handled several papers on top management team, so that's some aspect that you might consider, and organizational structure and business processes. So having said that, I think that it's important when you think in long-range planning to notice that during the last 6 years, the journal changed the emphasis. So, and this is important to have in mind, because several authors confuse the original emphasis of the paper with the current emphasis. Originally, the paper has a strong emphasis on managerial relevance, and scientific rigor was not there. So you may see paper from 10 years or older. Oh, this look like more a California Management Review or a Harvard Business Review. But this changes during the last year, and it's becoming a more rigorous paper. However, we still have a strong commitment to having a meaningful content of the paper. So we want scientific rigor, but we want really to address meaningful, useful content, and this could be achieved sometime narrowing a bit the scope or the ambitions of the manuscript. During the last year, the impact factor has really increased, substantially increased. It is a nice trend we have now. So the journal is getting more and more citations every year, paper of the journal. A slight different what Gabriel said.
Professor, Professor, I apologize for interrupting you. Just, are you trying to change the slides? Because we're just saying the first slide, not the other ones.
Oh, sorry. Let me go again. So I will start again. Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
I don't know what's happening. Let me try again and go once again from the beginning. This is you. I don't know why. This is the first slide, correct?
Yes.
Perfect.
This is the second. Could you see the second one?
Yes.
This
now
is
we
the
can.
third. So this is. Could you see this now?
Yes, perfectly.
Yes.
Oh, sorry for my mistake. So I was discussing this slide. That was the impact factor, and I think I can continue from here, and is for respecting the time of the session. Could you see the acceptance rate now?
Yes,
okay.
Perfect.
Okay. One issue that is slightly different from Gabriel's presentation is we have a highest desk rejection rate. So around 70% of the papers suffer desk rejection. To some extent, this is good news. The risk is that we might desk reject a good potential paper, but that's the bad news. But the good news is that if you are not fitting, you will receive in less than 2 weeks the rejection. Having after that first screening, the final acceptance rate is equivalent to what Gabriel said is around 10%, but you increase substantially your chances after the first screening. And this has remained steady during the last years. The process is similar to what Gabriel said, and the owner of the process is the assigning associate editor. And keep this in mind for some of recommendations I will give you later on. Regarding this is one important issue, and also it's a difference. We have a sort of editorial bias. If you see the associate editors, most of them are from Europe and many of them from England. This relates to the origin of the journal, and always think that when you submit a paper, you submit to a community, and the community has at least two main elements: the associate editors and the editorial board that eventually will revise your manuscript. So this community of associate editor is heavily located in Europe. Most probably a Brazilian, I will be in charge of Brazilian papers, most probably. But having said that, it might not be the case. And second, the editorial board is also heavily located in Europe or United States. So they set the standard. So as an associate editor, I can push a manuscript. I found it attractive, but my reviewers really constrain a lot the degrees of freedom I have as an associate editor. So it's very important when you think is to meet their quality requirements. So that's something important to have in mind. I think that another element that is attractive is there is a sort of a misfit between submission regions or where we submit the paper and acceptance rate. We have an increasing submission rate from Brazil. You can see there. The gray one is 2001 because it's incomplete. It's not because it's small. But we have a lot of manuscripts that we are receiving an increasing from Brazil. China was last year the most important one. But when we switch and take a different vision and we look for acceptance region, we have that. I go back to the previous one. Within the top 10 countries of submission, Brazil is there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The 7th country in submission is Brazil. However, it's not in the top 10 of acceptance rate. So this is something to consider. So giving to a final comment, and again, thinking a lot on Brazil, there are some quick gains. One issue is, please take a lot of care on formal aspects. So, and the first comment and the second comment are heavily related. My recommendation is look for paper from the last 3, 4, 5 years and publishes in Longrange Planning and in your topic, and try to adjust what you observe that has been published, because reviewers have this in mind, and it's some additional work, but it's something that everybody can do. So take care of that formal aspect in the way the journal present the information. And finally, if you have a lack and you got a revise and resubmit, or even if not, do not hesitate in contacting the associate editor that is managing your paper for further advice. So there is a possibility to establish a conversation. Remember that we, as associate editors, are heavily committed to publish good paper. So this is our passion. So if you have doubt, if you are not totally, you are not fully understanding what the reviewer is asking, sometimes feel free to eventually contact directly the associate editor to increase the odds of publishing a manuscript.
Okay. Professor Benito and Professor Vassolo, it is indeed a great pleasure. I hope you are hearing me now properly. It's a great pleasure to have you both here and the other participants. Thank you very much. Very good presentations, very concise, very clear. And I know that Professor Gabriel Benito has some time constraints, so I will go straight to the questions that have been raised, and I will share those questions with you. There is a comment. I will initiate with a comment, and it said just a comment. Co-authors and me got a great experience in a special issue process, and the third round we have a Zoom with the special editors. It was the first time I had this experience. Congratulations. Congratulations, GSJ. So I think this is a very interesting thing. You know, it looks clearly that you have a constructive approach to help people produce and publish their papers. It's a tough journey, but it's a constructive journey, clearly, based on this particular comment. I have also a question for Professor Benito. The question is, in case we believe we have a research idea that fits GSJ and follows recent research published in the journal, is there any advice that you could give us that may help writing the manuscript to fit the best, to fit best the journal? Thanks. So that's the question.
Thank you. I would like to start with the previous comment, the one about being constructive. It was very nice to hear that that had happened to Silvio and his co-authors, but it also echoes what Roberto said in his presentation about actually engaging with in a conversation with the editors. It is possible to do that. Of course, no, we cannot set aside of our careers just to help one particular a team of authors or an author. We can't do that. But actually, you know, grab us when you have the chance, either at conferences or communicating concisely on email or and so forth. You know, we there to support you know, the publishing of the best possible research. Okay, so I just wanted to start with that because it's of a positive note. In terms of Alexander's question, it's fairly general. You know, first of all, it doesn't, you know, it's fine if research has been published in the journal, but that's not decisive. You know, we take a broad view. It's not about whether, you know, the research has been published in the journal or not. If it has been published in the journal, that may make it easier to position the research, and also make it sort of more clearly to engage in a conversation in a particular line of research. But we take a broad view. You know, we're not sort of exclusively focused on what we publish, but we look at sort of what is published in the field at large, and that is what we would expect. So, if things have been published recently in the journal, well, be certain that you try to build on that. It would be a grave oversight if you do not. But it's, you know, we as the journal, we do not define the domain, and that I think is important to know. So we're not sort of an internal journal in that sense.
Okay, I have a question to both of you. You both say that one of the main goals of your journals is to ensure that the articles can be useful for academics and professionals in management and strategy, and it's hope that they are impactful. So, what are the main challenges in this task? How should new scholars organize their research so that is useful and impactful to academics and management professionals?
I can take, but could you please, Gabriel, if you want to? Okay.
Please go ahead, Roberto. I can say a few things after.
Okay. Maybe the most difficult issue is the underlying research question. No, having good research questions, and you said when you define the research question, you said that problem, and I highly recommend authors not to set research question from the literature, but I am phenomenon biased. So from understanding what is happening in the context or where they are working to have that. So from one practical point is get good research questions, and heavily related to what managers need or the society is needing, depending on the topic. This is one issue. Another issue, and it's not from long-range planning, it's something that is increasingly growing in different journals, is to report the size effect. So we used to have in our training a bias towards the percentage of, if it is a regression, the percentage of the asterisk note that is a 95% of significant coefficient, but we do not usually report how much of the variance are we explaining through that effect that we are measuring. So I think that starting to get accustomed to report the effect size or size effect of the coefficient is very important. In some journals, it's a requirement nowadays. I think that SMJ is requiring that. I know that management and organization review is requiring that. I think that as long-range planning, we are not explicitly requiring, but most effectively we will do. So this give you, so is this really important, or is something that only explain 1% of the total story? No, that will be a brief answer.
Okay, just to add to this, but give it a slightly different angle than Roberto. I think what we stepping into is of the perennial discussion of relevance and rigor, or relevance versus rigor. Sure, relevance is important, and relevance means here sort of the phenomenon that we're looking at and the research questions that emerge from that phenomenon, whereas rigor is the quality of the research per se. Of course, we want to be relevant, and we want to have impact beyond the realm of academics. However, we are a research journal. So unless this is a commentary or often sort of an invited piece or something, rigor dominates. Rigor is a necessary condition for getting published. Relevance is neither a necessary condition nor a sufficient condition. Okay, because we can easily find examples of pieces of research that may seem at present unconnected to any particular phenomenon, but that we think may be important for the future, or may turn out to become important in the future, and would be interesting as such, although we cannot connect any particulars of ongoing debate or a particular, say, need from the industry and attached to that piece of work. So I think that rigor dominates relevance, and it needs to be that for an academic journal. It would be different for a practitioner-oriented journal, of course.
Very clear. We have just as part of the question that I've seen similar questions before. A manuscript with the same topic and method has been previously published in a magazine and or in the very same journal. Would that decrease the chances of acceptance or not?
Yes, if it doesn't add beyond that, then certainly yes. So as most other journals, we are a bit hesitant to publish replication studies unless they actually bring something new to the table. And I think a good example here is the special issue on replication that was published in SMJ 4 years ago now, that actually brought a lot of new things to the table, because there were replication studies that really wanted to be brave and try out old established truths, so to speak, And it turned out that a lot of what we thought was gold standard in strategy turned out to be more shaky than we thought they were. So yeah, but purely replicative stuff is of a little interest.
Okay, so Professor Ricardo Jordão, are you still there? Would you like to make any additional comment or raise any additional topic? We have this time constraint.
Sure.
Professor Benito has to leave soon.
Yeah, for sure. The main, first of all, I would like to thank you for your clarifications, but a question that frequently arises in academic debates is about the required formats and other internal requirements imposed by academy and by each journal in particular. So, do you think this can inhibit research with real impact and contribution? And a second question, how can we manage this situation? And what kind of tips could you provide for young scholars to overpass this situation, learning from your experience as editors and helping us to know more clearly how to create impactful and real contribution, also from a practical perspective, also from a theoretical perspective, theoretical one. Could it be?
Roberto, I'm not sure whether you want to go first or give me I can just two quick reflections. I think it's important to distinguish between the research phase and the communication or publishing phase of the research journey. And the research journeys can be very, very long. And of course they are connected to each other, because a lot of the essential quality in the research that can be very, very hard to redo at a later stage is done at an early stage. But that is very often long before one has even thought about the journal. And especially for younger scholars, and they want to do their PhD perhaps, or their postdoc project, often very constrained. They are guided and inspired by their own thoughts, but they are often constrained by the institution, their funding, their supervisor, and so forth. And that puts some constraints on what they do. But that phase is very important because there are some research design issues and so forth that are very hard to redo at a later stage. And that is also before we really connect to that research. So when we get the research, it's when there is a manuscript there. Now, at that point, what sometimes surprises me is that the authors do not do their homework. They haven't looked at what we publish. Now, what we publish is what we have published in the past is it defines in many ways. So, okay, where do we think that the minimum requirements in terms of quality, content, structure, and so forth should be in the journal? Now, you have at least to meet those standards, and then possibly move beyond that in order to get into the journal in the future. And for journals like GSJ and also Longrange Planning that are sort of upwardly mobile at the moment, it means that that looking at what has been published before and in recent years, as Roberto told you, is probably a good guide for that. But you need to meet those standards, and unless you do a serious attempt at meeting those standards, I cannot understand why one would think that one could pass through the mill. It's just not going to happen. So I think that sometimes, you know, we submit prematurely, and we don't really put into the manuscript the sort of careful work that we need to do.
Let me build on what Gabriel said. I fully subscribe what he have said, and I will add a dimension. It's thinking your research. Also, Gabriel said, as a portfolio, no, that will evolve a long time, and so part of your research. Part of the stuff that you write will go to journals. Part of the stuff that you write will go to more managerial reviews. Part of the stuff will end in a book or in a press article. Of course, the balance will change at the very early stage of the career. If you have done your PhD in Latin America, so thinking in Latin America, most probably you need to put a lot of emphasis on the research and the rigorous aspect, of your manuscript, and reaching that necessary level to moving ahead. After you have proved yourself that you can reach certain level of journals, I heavily recommend you to increase your portfolio. This will move you to interesting research question, and most probably, since you are going to be located in Latin America, will keep you motivated. And one issue to think all in your entire career and think and rethink is, what is your location competitive advantage? So what is unique about Brazil that give you an advantage, a location advantage for building theory or building knowledge? So again, we cannot sacrifice the research quality because of what you have, but given that you already can ensure you have the research quality, thinking what are the locational advantages. Brazil is a huge country, and there are a lot of aspects that are very unique to Brazil, on which being a Brazilian or living in Brazil give you an advantage in order to enter into a global conversation. So I will think a lot on that aspect from very early in my career.
Okay, well, I think we have a final comment question here. It's about the difficulty of publishing, and it's about motivation. I don't know whether you've seen this. I have tried to publish a paper in an international journal 3 times. The first time my paper did not pass screening. Second and third try, the paper passed screening, but I was rejected by reviewers. It is clear that the problem, perhaps the problem is related to the methodology. That methodology does too much, and it's difficult to assess the quality of the paper. In this case, how to keep the motivation to put forward the paper. Sometimes I think the data of the research is already old, and I'm afraid it won't, it won't be, it's going to be even more difficult to publish. Let me see. Anyway, the question is for both. It's about motivation. I think in a way you have answered this question in different ways, already explaining how the procedure and the homework that the authors have to do before submitting the paper. Would you like to make comments on this, both of you?
Sure. Just a few comments. First of all, don't give up. Believe in the work that you do, and unless, of course, for a variety of reasons, something becomes obsolete. So if the phenomenon is not interesting anymore, or so the data are really, really old. Think of ways where you can sort of polish this. Think of different angles and so forth. One piece of advice: read the reviews properly. Try to learn from the process. Reviews can be harsh, and it's hard to get hard comments, but it's also some learning to be taken from the process, and that is important. One way often to help develop a paper is to submit it to international conferences, where you may get more viewpoints on what you're doing than you perhaps do in a purely domestic context. You can also try to ask for critical reviews from people that you know well, and that would be hard and frank but constructive, and then try to push things forward. So, and I mean, unless it's an obsolete piece of research, I think that decent research should always be pushed towards a better version of itself, and eventually get published. So good luck with that. Don't give up.
Professor Roberto?
Yes, I will add some additional comments, again, thinking on how do you handle your portfolio and your self-esteem. So I think that every paper could find an outlet. So if you realize that you are having a lot of problem and you also need to meet your promotion criteria, you can always go for some journal that are, maybe the standards are not so high. So that's something that is of course is not clear cut, but in that aspect you see the material publishes. So that one issue to consider. Something that I will really recommend is, if you are keeping, and it's good, if you continue trying to get good journal, please do not forget that if you start the paper and you initially submit 5 years ago, the conversations has evolved. It happened to me that I received papers in which the most recent citations are from the year 2015, 2016. So that paper meets 5 years of recent conversation. So if you are going to continue trying to push up the manuscript, get into the recent conversation. So I would say that's a rule of thumb. Your introduction has mainly to refer to, not mainly, but has a good part of the citation of the introduction should relate to recent papers. So that would be an additional comment in this thought. And I think that what Gabriel said of enjoy the process, this is a huge wisdom. Enjoy the process, not only the output. So it's in the process the beauty of life.
May I add a bit to what Roberto just said? And this is a personal experience. One, be resilient and perseverant. And I've had papers published in very good journals that have been rejected 5-6 times with other journals. Okay, that's the first thing. So don't give up too easily. Secondly, the longest march towards publication I've ever had with a paper, with a concrete manuscript, was 9 years from the first complete version of that paper that was presented in a conference and to final publication of that article. 9 years. So a bit of patience, and is helpful sometimes.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I think that we have, it's already 12 past 11 BRT. And I know again that you have other commitments. So I would like to thank you very much for being here, for sharing your experience. It has indeed been a very useful exchange of ideas. And again, as I said before, very clear, very concise presentations. Thank you very much for sharing your experience. And until another opportunity. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure. Bye.
Thank you for the invitation. Bye.
Bye-bye then.
I
Bye.
would like to thank you again, but more than formally thank you on behalf of the organizing committee of SemeAD. I would like to present you my personal thank you and gratitude for your help, assistance, and support. And more than that, it's always a pleasure to learn from you, all as editor and editor-in-chief have faced several challenges, and always it's a very, very productive opportunity learning from our colleagues and observing that in many circumstances, the challenge is precisely the same. But the way we are dealing with this, it's real different. And in this perspective, it's totally grateful for me, learn from you. And in this point, I would like to thank you again. And please, let's keep in contact. If I can support you in everything, feel free to contact me, okay? And thank you again. My very best wish. Count on me.
Okay. Bye-bye then. Bye.
Bye-bye.